Peace, everyone. Peace, peace, peace. My name is Jamar Jabari, and welcome to another episode of the Unsavory Politik. Today's episode, we talk about two things: the height of greed and war fatigue. The height of greed, I want to break down the capitalist system on two aspects: the things that we would do. Well, I wouldn't want to say we, the things that the ruling class would do to make money, to capitalize. The whole point of capitalism is to expand. When these people are expanding, and the reason why they become monopolies in these businesses is because they have to always kick back to their stockholders. There's us to always be able to grow and build as much wealth until there's no more wealth to build, I guess. That's exactly what they want to do. So when we get into, for instance, all the wars that we have had, we only had a 20-year period of peace within this young country. It has always been about profit and profit under resources, especially. You cannot say that the Ukraine war has nothing to do without oil. The Ukraine war is everything to do, just as much as the NATO expansion, just as much as the security issues that Russia has experienced, and also said, and just as much as the civil war that has happened in Ukraine, it is all about a hegemonic control for the U.S. and also profits over the people. Well, let's look into the New York Times article that just came out, actually. So I want to give you an example about this damn pipeline, the Nordstream 2 pipeline, which was a pipeline that was um, blown up. And Seymour Hersh's article explained that the pipeline was blown up by the US. I need people, it's going to be in the link below about his article, but I need people, if you really want to be informed about these things, the Western media mainstream is not going to cover it to the full extent, which is what we're going to see here in this new New York Times article. You can look it up on the New York Times. It's called The Intelligence Suggests Pro-Ukrainian Group Sabotage Pipelines. This is a response to try to discredit Seymour Hersh for doing his due diligence on trying to explain our government was planning to destroy that pipeline, and we actually successfully did destroy that pipeline. But they do not want us to know that. This is a big cover up because it has repercussions. We're talking about economic repercussions for Germany, not even just for Russia. And we are selling liquid gas. You can look it up 4 times the price to Europe because this pipeline is done. So it's just so miraculously that we're not involved in one of the most biggest war crimes ever in history, but we're still reaping the benefits of getting Europeans to pay 4 times the value of liquid gas. How is that just a coincidence that we're able to do that? So I just want to read a little bit from this article. I think it's very comedic. Um, they basically threw Ukraine under the bus as well too. Let's see. The U.S. officials declined to disclose the nature of the intelligence, how it was obtained, or any details of the strength of the evidence of the evidence it contains. They have said that there are no firm conclusions about it, leaving open the possibility that the operation might have been conducted off the books by a proxy force with communications to the Ukrainian government or its security services. Some intel US and European speculation centered a possible Russian culpability, especially given its prowess in the undersea operation. Through it, and it's unclear what motivation the Kremlin will have in sabotaging the pipeline, given that they have been an important source of revenue, means for Moscow to to exert influence over Europe. Blah 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 influence. Um, Oil from Russia has been a big dependency to Europe since the USSR. This has been a thing for a long time. So I just find it very hilarious when people are automatically just on the all Russian is evil side and all this stuff. The US did not know uh, that the implications of this oil industry will rupture Europe. And you can look all throughout Europe. You can look all throughout Europe and tell that people are protesting, even though they don't want to cover it. People are protesting, and they are protesting because they are not in agreement with this war, and plus the economy in their countries is decreasing, which is making it harder for to survive. And now we're sitting here where they are literally blaming either it was the Russians or Ukrainians. Let's go on the Russian side. Russia and Germany put this pipeline together as a coalition so they can have a better business on getting fuel towards Europe. Over billions of dollars they spent. Why would they waste billions of dollars with this pipeline? It makes absolutely no sense. If you are a business person, you will be saying to yourself, yeah, that makes no sense. Why didn't the fuck would we give billions of dollars to get this pipeline together and then we just want to blow it up? No, that's just it's it's not logical, people. It's not logical. It's not logical. It's not logical. And I keep saying that because that is the dispute that people literally want to believe because of the Russia-phobic rhetoric that they have been taught in this country. I don't care if you don't give a fuck about Russia, but do not be fooled by these idiots. And then they go on to blame Ukrainians as well too. They are cash cows, but now all of a sudden they have to blame the Ukrainians. And dude, let's just keep reading real quick. Let's just keep reading. I want you guys to really see what's going on. You can read this article for yourself. I'm gonna read some parts here. Officials said there were still enormous gaps in what U.S. spies agencies and their European partners knew about what transpired. But officials said it might constitute the first significant lead to emerge from several closely guarded investigations, the conclusion of which could have profound implications for the coalition supporting Ukraine. Any suggestion of Ukrainian involvement, whether direct or indirect, can upset the delicate relationship between Ukraine, Germany, soaring support around a German public that has swallowed high energy prices in the name of solidarity. They're already recognizing it right there that Germany economic crisis is a big fucking deal. US officials who have been bribed, the intelligence are divided about how much weight to put on this new information. All of them, all of them spoke on conditions of animosity to discuss classified intelligence and matters of sensitive uh, diplomacy. The U.S. officials said the new intelligence report has increased their optimism, and Americans and partners in Europe can find information which can allow them to reach a firm conclusion about the perpetrators. It is unclear how long that process will take. American officials recently discussed the intelligence with the European counterparts who have taken the lead in the investigation of the attack, which, by the way, Sweden and I believe it was Finland as well too. They did their own professional investigation on this pipeline, and they did not want to release it at first because you know why? Because the United States did it, and Seymour Hersh was correct. And if you read this article more and you see what's going on, you see that they're trying to say, "Oh, it was them, the Ukrainians." They're going everything they can to cover up their mistakes. But if you look into their speeches, for instance, Joe Biden literally said, "We will put an end to the Nord Stream pipeline." He said that out of his mouth. And then you got Newland. She was joking about how it's just a hunk of metal under the sea. That hunk of metal under the sea has contributed to an economic collapse for Germany. How dare you joke about that while you're also literally bullying the Europeans to pay you 4 times the amount for liquid gas. This is a heist. This is mafia shit. And it is a war crime. And the fact that people are not outraged about this is absolutely stupid. No, listen, you think this is bad? Let's talk about how much money. Let's talk about how much money these contractors have made. I have that information as well too, and I would like to thank the Liberation News for doing their due diligence covering this story. Comrade Amanda Yee, shouts out to you. Now let's see how much money. No, what is it when we talk about the height of greed? What this greed looks like when you're willing to start wars upon wars, and don't say that they don't want to prolong war. The war in Syria is still prolonged. The war in Afghanistan was 20 years. I am 30 years old. That was majority of my life. And the war in Afghanistan is still not over because they are withholding money, billions of dollars from the Afghanistan people because they do not like the Taliban. And this is starving the people. I don't care what you think about what the Taliban done. The whole point of the situation I thought was to get rid of the Taliban. While you make all that money with over fucking oil, but the Taliban is still involved, so you lost. And now all these women and children and families are suffering. And it's because you want to withhold their money. Yemen is still going on. So do not tell me that they do not want to use Ukraine as an experiment as the European Afghanistan. Let's look at this article. You can look up this article on Liberation News. It's called Six Warmongers Think Tank and the Military Contractors That Fund Them. Number one, Center of Strategic and International Studies, 500,000. Well, actually, let's go to the top, give you a synopsis. From producing reports and analysts for the U.S. policymakers to enlist representatives to write op-eds, sorry, and corporate media to providing talking heads for corporate media to interview and give quotes. Think tanks play a fundamental role in shaping both U.S. foreign policy and public participation around the foreign policy. Leaders at the top think tanks like the Atlantic Council and the Hudson Institution have even been called upon to set focused priorities for the House Intelligence Committee. However, one look at the funding sources of most influential think tanks reveals whose interests they really serve. That is the U.S. military and the defense contractors, the ecosystem of overlaying networks of government institutions, think tanks, and defense contractors is where U.S. foreign policy is derived. In a revolving door existence amongst these three sectors. For example, before Biden appointed head of the Pentagon, Lloyd Austin took his current position. He sat on the board of directors at Raytheon. So, business and government, where you will always see work hand to hand. Before Austin appointment, current defense policy advisor Michelle Fournier was also in the running for the position. Fournier sat on the board of Boom Allen Hamilton, another major Pentagon defense contractor. These defense contractors also work together with the tanks like the Center for Strategic and International Studies to organize conferences attended by national security officials. On top of all this, since the end of the Cold War, intelligence analysts by the CIA and the NSA, they go your biggest fucking spies. While we're worried about balloons, the CIA and the NSA is busy as fuck. Snowden warned you about the NSA. Don't pretend that they're not done, as increasingly been contracted out to the same defense companies like Bay Systems and Lockheed Martin, amongst others. A major conflict of interest. In other words, the corporations are the position to produce intelligence reports with raising the alarm of U.S. enemy, and that's in quotation, nations, so they can sell more military equipment. Now, this is literally, before I continue, this is literally the way it is. This is literally the way it is. And if anyone want to pretend that we are not big business with selling arms and bombing people across the world just to keep up our capital, I need you to literally get a reality check, because we are not investing and building people infrastructure like the Belt and Road initiatives that China is doing. We're not investing in sending our doctors or any type of healthcare programs to these other countries like Cuba has been doing for a while now. We are investing in death. Your government invests in death. And in order for them to make money off of death, they need to sell arms 24/7 so they can build capital on death. And that's just the bottom line. If anybody wants to dispute that, you tell me where else is we're getting billions of dollars in sales that's not about death and arms. Let me tell you, and of course, these are the same defense companies that donate hundreds of thousands of dollars each year to think tanks. Giving all this is any wonder the U.S. government is um excuse me, the U.S. government is flooding billions of dollars of weaponry into unwinnable proxy wars in Ukraine while escalating a Cold War into potential military confrontation with China. The funding to these policy institutions steer the U.S. foreign policy agenda to give a scope of how these contributions determine security priorities. Listed below are six of some of the most influential foreign policy think tanks, along with how much is the contribution they received from the defense contractors in the last year. All funding information for the policy institution was gathered from the most recent and annual report that was available online. Also, note that this list is compiled from that makes this information publicly available, so you can see this. You can see this. You can see this. It's available. Many think tanks, such as the Hawkish Enterprise Institute, do not release donation sources publicly. Okay, so number one, make sure my screen is big, because people say, "Dude, I can't see your screen sometimes." I got you, bros, and everybody else. The Center of Strategic International Studies. Look at all that money, huh? Yeah, the Center for a New American Security, the Hudson Institute, Atlantic Council, International Institute for Strategic Studies, and the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. It's a big business. War is a big business. And when you read War is a Racket, it opens up your mind. When you see shit like this that's happening currently today, it makes you question the reason why we are defending a corrupt country like Ukraine, which was literally called the one of the most corrupt countries in the world, toppled their government with a mother effing CIA bipartisan effort, and Zelensky wins, getting rid of a Nazi president. But you see that he can't even do anything because of the powers that be. So this is why 24/7 we talk about Russia, Ukraine, war in general, because all of this is not about democracy. This is about profit. This is about building capital, expanding U.S. hegemony. And when they feel threatened, they need to start wars like this. I mean, here's the problem, guys. And I think that the importance, instead of just sitting here listening, we're going to move on to another subject. But instead of sitting here listening to these people that are literally lying to us, and they're always bringing up this propaganda about how this is an effort that's happening in the war and all this stuff. The big picture is this: hundreds and thousands of Ukrainians and Russians are dead. Hundreds of thousands are dead because of this bullshit. They are dead because of the industrial process, the military industrial projects, the military industrial complex. They are dead because of imperialism. They are dead because it is profit over people. The United States does not give a damn about Ukrainians. If they did, they would have took heed to what Biden said in the 90s, which you can look up, that Ukraine needs to stay neutral, and expanding NATO will be a security conflict to Russia. They don't care about the ethnic Russian Ukrainians in the Donbass regions that were shelled and murdered for 8 years since 2014 in the civil war by the Kiev regime. They do not care about Ukrainians. They don't care about Russian Ukrainians. They do not care about Russians. They care about profit. They care about U.S. hegemony. And you can unfollow me, whatever you want, but this is the truth. When you look at where the money is at, when you look at who is getting the money, you will find the truth. You will find the truth. Now, I want to go into another segment. Let's talk about domestic politics here. We have we talked about the Norfolk Southern. We talked about Norfolk Southern, and they are now talking about, after all these derailments, they want to actually, for the first effing time, talk about safety precautions.
Norfolk Southern says it's making safety-based changes after two of the company trains in Ohio in a month. The 6-point plan on boost safety. The plan includes the enhancement of the hot bearing detectors, which can trigger an alarm if a potential failure or high temperatures are detected.
We're cooperating with the NTSB. We're cooperating with the local, state, federal resources to make sure that we investigate them fully. Understand what
there were no injuries reported in the most recent. Norfolk Southern says none of those train cars were carrying hazardous material. The derailment last month in East Palestine, Ohio, did have hazardous materials, and the National Transport Safety Board continues.
So, what does this mean? I don't even want to, I could pull out the articles. I could talk about how much profit they have made throughout the years, how much money they have put into the Democratic Party, how much money they have put into the Republicans, the main Western media here, and MSNBC, Fox, or whatever. But the issue in the matter is this. They are saying this because this is what they need people to listen to, so we don't keep the outrage going. They are saying this so we can calm the fuck down. Do you really, really, really think? I need people to understand. There has been 2,000 moments this year. Pete Buttigieg, dumbass, literally said that it happens on a regular basis, and he's mad that he's now getting flack for it. That's why he's telling people, oh, this happens on a regular basis. Like, okay, why does it happen on a regular basis? Because they don't care. The infrastructure is so damn old. They got shit there from the fucking Civil War era. And now all of a sudden, after all these goddamn years, after all these goddamn derailments and shit, after all these damn plants and not plants, plants, fish, all these animals dead, all these people getting rashes are dying as well too. After all of that, they finally want to say, oh, we have a safety plan. Don't believe it. Don't believe it. And they're going to be slow like molasses if they actually going to do it. I want to see if they're going to actually do this, because it's profit over people in this country. And they are only talking about this because it's a hot button issue. Just like how they try to bury the pipeline bullshit. Currently, they're trying to bury this too. And they feel like crap because these are Democrats involved. And the Democrats need to get the same type of heat that if Trump was in office or if Bush was in office. Hell, if Ron DeSantis fucking won the damn primary and moves on to the presidency, I need to see the same smoke that you give the red crowd to the blue crowd. Because at the end of the day, it's not about versus red and blue. It's about the people versus the fucking fucked up system. And what system is that? Capitalism. It's about poor versus the rich, and the rich will always fuck over the poor, always, until we all come together and actually hold this government accountable. We need to change this system. I have the optimistic belief that we can change this system because we have done it before. We put them on edge in the 1960s. We could put them on edge in the 2020s. We can do that. But I give my solidarity to Norfolk, to everyone that is workers, that does not have any control of what's going on, to the working people in East Palestine, to everyone that is literally affected by these derailments. I give my condolences to you and my solidarity, because this should have never happened. If we live in the richest country in the world, we should have an infrastructure just as great as other countries. But we don't, because it's profit over the people. And I end that with saying that. Thank you so much.